Defense News. It's proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, we get an interview with the director of the U.S. Missile Defense Agency. Find out what he had to say about the force's top priorities. Plus, a year after they lost their son in the deadly attack at the Kabul airport, a Gold Star family looks back. Also, the Air Force has landed on a new helmet for its fixed-wing aircraft crew. Check out a preview of the winning design. And a Marine heads to space. Wrong turn at Pendleton? Find out how she went from the Corps into orbit. It's the latest in news and analysis from the Pentagon to the platoon, here on Defense News Weekly. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Andrea Scott. Vice Admiral John Hill heads up one of the key areas of defense for the United States, the Missile Defense Agency. At a recent Space, Missile, and Defense Symposium in Huntsville, Alabama, Defense News' Jen Judson caught up with Hill to talk about issues he's facing as tensions simmer with rivals around the globe. Here's what he had to say.
Sure. Let's talk about, I think, the buzzword everyone talks about is the Next Generation Interceptor. Everyone wants to know where you are with that. We've had updates recently from the two companies that are competing for the NGI contract, and it seems that things are moving along well from both of those competitors. I believe we're heading into a preliminary design review next year. So talk about what you need to accomplish leading up to that, and also what is next. And do you think you can shrink the timeline? I know you've said it would be nice to have NGI sooner rather than later.
Right.
It's been a long time coming.
Right.
So if you can talk a little bit about whether you're seeing that as more realistic.
Yeah, just to put it in context for those who may not know, if you go back about 20 years, that's when we first deployed the first ballistic missile defense system. And so that's how long we have had that system deployed. That's a long time. And so I'm really happy that the department approved moving forward with the Next Generation Interceptor to include two companies competing all the way through critical design review. Yeah. So let me kind of back up where we are with both companies. We did a complete successful system requirements review. And so in order to get there, you have to make sure that the technology you have is mature enough to move into the development cycle. And so when you came through system requirements review, that means the requirements that have been set and the requirements that we're going to go build to have all been approved and they are feasible. And so technically feasible, able to go execute. So that's really important. So we came through that milestone with both companies. I would say that they're very close in timelines, not exactly on top of each other, but that's what you would expect with two different approaches coming in. So as we move towards preliminary design review, what that really means is now taking those requirements and getting into the design process. And we say preliminary, that means we've come through all of the technology that's going to be incorporated into those rounds, that we've de-risked all the hard risk areas so that we can then move from preliminary design review to critical design review. Okay. And when you get to critical design, that means you've got a design that closes to the requirements and you're ready to build. And so so where we are today is kind of halfway between systems requirements review on path to preliminary design. So it's a great place to be and it's a great place to measure, but it's very early in the program.
Right.
So when you challenge me with the question, hey, how early can you go? I will tell you both companies are saying they can get to first emplacement earlier than the government reference schedule of 2028. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you that there's a long road between now and then.
Right.
And so we'll just keep on path. Both are performing very well. Two different designs, both incorporating multiple kill vehicles. That's where the threat drives us. And so we're managing that very well. Companies are doing really well.
When is critical design review set to happen?
It's typically about a year after.
So the preliminary design review will be in late fiscal 2023, or?
Depends on which company you're talking about. So they'll be different.
They'll be different.
They'll be phased a little bit differently. So generally, next year, summer, fallish time frame.
Okay.
Up next, some of the helmets that protect airmen on the job were designed decades ago. Heavy, at times weighted unevenly, and not made with women in mind, they were due for an upgrade. On this week's MilTech, Todd South looks at a new update in headgear for fixed-wing aircrew. Check it out.
Cool helmets, and training for virtual bombing runs, the Air Force is headed towards some interesting upgrades for their high-flying crews in coming years. Everyone knows that serving on an Air Force aircraft is a lot like being a hockey goalie. Part of the draw is you get to wear a cool helmet. But for a lot of air crews, their headgear is based on 1980s technology. So one small but vital improvement is a new aircrew helmet that the Air Force recently bought, which will catapult crews using 1980s design tech into the 2020 stratosphere. Air Force officials selected Lift Airborne Technologies to develop the new aircrew helmet prototype. Isn't a helmet just a shell, a kind of a brain bucket to keep crews from banging their heads while in the aircraft? Nope, this helmet isn't your grandpa's skull saver. That's because back when the current helmet was designed, users didn't have to attach all kinds of devices, displays, and accessories to their helmets. Mounting a bunch of items to the helmet can throw off the center of gravity. And old helmets were built for the average pilots and average crews, mostly men. Well, much like the Army recently updated body armor to better fit female soldiers, Air Force female pilots and crews also need a greater range of sizes. And users of any gender need it to balance well on their heads. That's why Lift is working on it now. They've gathered the data since after starting the project in 2019 with AFWorks, an Air Force unit that finds cutting-edge tech that the Force needs, and officials expect the new helmet, which would include features such as a single pivot visor, rotatable receivers, hands-free cockpit illumination, a magnetic chin strap, low-profile night vision mounting plate, and a nuclear flash attachment in case those crews are flying into the apocalypse. That helmet is expected to go into production by 2024. On a bit of a longer but no less crucial timeline, there's a new $80 million virtual range that will allow pilots in the Air Force to test out laser weapons and defense in a safe virtual environment. The service contracted with BlueHalo to build the Directed Energy Modeling and Simulation Virtual Range. Now, that's a mouthful. The decade-long project will give users a realistic way to run war games and battle scenarios with simulated laser weapons. While each of the services have dedicated air combat ranges, Military Times has reported in recent years that such ranges all require major upgrades for pilots to use their full weapons systems and full weapons gear and complement. From smarter bombs and missiles to more effective radar and other sensors, pilots have been flying right now with one tech hand tied behind their back for years. With those upgrades taking years to fund and fill, laser weaponry took somewhat of a backseat on the simulation development front, until now. BlueHalo currently produces counter-drone laser systems, electro-optical tracking devices, radio frequency surveillance systems, human-machine interface software, and a variety of artificial intelligence products and a host of other high-tech gear. The Air Force Research Laboratory out of Kirtland Air Force Base, New Mexico, announced the project in June, after the service had held a laser wargaming event in January. The point of that exercise was to have pilots integrate both kinetic, think bombs, missiles, things that go boom, and non-kinetic weapons, think silent, kind of invisible or likely invisible lasers, melting, jamming, or disabling components of other aircraft. Sorry, no boom. No space-age sci-fi pew 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 either. Lasers are not as awesome to look at as you might think. But by having a dedicated laser-focused range, see what I did there? A range focused on lasers, the Air Force hopes to push pilots to the next level of air combat. We'll keep tracking all things laser combat and more. With Military Times, this is Todd South.
When we come back, a year after the deadly attack at the Kabul airport, one family speaks about the son they lost in Afghanistan. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In August 2021, a suicide bomber attacked the Abbey Gate of the airport in Kabul, wounding scores and killing 13 service members. Now, a year later, the family of Lance Corporal Dylan Merola, who was killed in the attack, was able to accept a posthumous award on his behalf in a ceremony held at Disneyland in California. We spoke to Merola's family just after the event. Lance Corporal Dylan Merola was just 20 years old when he was assigned the task of helping evacuate Afghan allies at the Kabul airport in August 2021. In the final days of the American military presence there, Merola was on duty when a suicide bomber struck.
My son's time in the Marine Corps was very short. He joined in August 26th of 2019, and he was on his first deployment and was out and serving his first deployment when August 26, 2021 came about.
Last week, Merola's mother accepted the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal for her son, awarded posthumously for his actions that day.
To be out here with the flag ceremony was beautiful and amazing. It's always more amazing to have my family with me. So to receive Dylan's medals, they're very heartbreaking, knowing that I'm receiving them and not him.
The ceremony was held at Disneyland, a place Merola's mother said was special to the family, which hails from Southern California.
It meant so much to me today to honor my son. As he was growing up, we attended a lot of things at Disneyland. We had season passes since he was little. It's very meaningful here. It's a special place to us.
The award was presented during Disneyland's daily flag retreat ceremony, when park staff and veterans retire the flag for the day. It was attended by Merola's mother, grandparents, sister, and brother, who himself graduated from Marine Corps boot camp just days prior. Disney staff said the presentation was something meaningful Disneyland could do for a local Gold Star family.
When the family first reached out, they went through our public relations team, and I believe it was Monica who sent an email and said, told us a story, and if we would be willing to host a family and allow the military to present the Navy Achievement Medal to Lance Corporal Dylan Merola, and without hesitation, the answer was yes. And when we knew that the story and we heard the background and we knew who it was for, every cast member here that's involved with veterans, friends, families of veterans, every cast member here who's involved with just event planning, operations at the Disneyland Resort, the flag retreat itself, knew that today was going to be a special day, and everybody was going to really put forth their best effort to make it such, and really give that family honestly what they deserve. And so that's what we're really hoping they walk away with today is something that's memorable, that they will never forget, and really truly, if at a minimum, with a smile on their face.
As we approach the 1-year anniversary, nothing has ever changed from the past year. Every day feels like the same. Every week feels like the same repetition week. It feels like it was yesterday. I miss everything about Dylan. His smile, his hugs, his phone calls, our weekends that he'd come home from the Marine Corps, just him being here with us.
And now for Defense Dollars. Raytheon hopes it can cement itself as a leader in small satellite technology. Its Blue Canyon Technologies company opened a facility in Colorado that will help increase its production capacity to 85 space vehicles per year, up from 50. The 31,000 square foot plant is set to build CubeSats, which weigh up to about 10 kilograms and are typically about the size of a loaf of bread. Since Raytheon acquired the company in 2021, it has expanded production capacity in Boulder, Colorado, and in a nearby facility that builds microsatellites. Those weigh between 10 and 100 kilograms. Welcome to the Thunderdome. That's the name of the contract between the Defense Information Systems Agency and Booz Allen Hamilton. The two recently extended the agreement, citing lessons learned from the Russia-Ukraine war and the need to better secure the Pentagon's communications system for secrets. The contract adds an additional 6 months to the deal for the inclusion of the Secure Internet Protocol Router Network, better known as SIPRNet. The Pentagon's IT office says the Secure Worldwide Network is outdated. The agency awarded Booz Allen a $6.8 million contract in January to develop a Thunderdome prototype. The extension lengthens the pilot to a full year, with a completion now expected at the start of 2023. And in military news headlines, a new book reveals shocking details from inside former President Donald Trump's relationship with top military brass. In their book, The Divider: Trump in the White House, due out in September, authors Peter Baker and Susan Glasser, senior reporters for the New York Times and New Yorker respectively, outline the departure of seemingly one top official after another. They also reveal a never-seen-before letter of resignation written by former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley. You can read it all on militarytimes.com. And renaming 9 Confederate honoring Army posts will cost $21 million, new estimates show. The renaming process will require removing the old names from all base paraphernalia, from street signs to recycling bins to business cards. The most expensive base change will be turning Fort Bragg, North Carolina, into Fort Liberty at an estimated $6.3 million. The least expensive change will be turning Fort Pickett into Fort Barfoot at $300,000. The Department of Defense is charged with completing the renaming by January 2024. When we return, our personal finance expert is back to talk you through ways to make your money go farther. And later, a Marine heads to space. Hear how she made the jump from uniform to spacesuit. Welcome back. On this edition of Money Minute, Navy Federal Credit Union personal finance expert Jeanette Mack talks about the advantages of having a down payment when buying a car.
When shopping for a car, most folks start crunching the numbers and focusing heavily on the almighty monthly payment amount. It is an important factor in the affordability of your car, but you should consider the total package of payments. The payments that may be coming to you, the ones you make up front, and the ones you'll have to make over time. The first and foremost is your down payment. It's good to have a stash of cash you can put toward the purchase so you can bring down your monthly payment. Better yet, trade in your old car. But what's best is a trade-in and a down payment. Add that to any rebates you may qualify for, and you're really maximizing your purchase power. It's elementary. When you borrow less, you pay less interest. That's more money back in your budget. So if you can swing it, make a down payment of at least 10 to 20%. Of course, the overall affordability of your car also depends upon maintenance, insurance, and miles per gallon. But if you've done your part to bring your monthly payment down as low as possible, you're already ahead of the game.
Thanks, Jeanette. We'll see you next time. To get more coverage of military and defense issues, make sure to check out our headlines every day at Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps Times.com and DefenseNews.com. And do you like being the smartest person in your unit? To get fresh headlines in your inbox every weekday, subscribe to our Early Bird Brief. Prefer to get your news on social media? Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And when we come back, a Marine takes an unexpected career turn and ends up strapped into a rocket pointed towards space. Hear her story when we return. Welcome back. The path from Marine recruit to NASA spaceflight leader is not a common one, but Marine Colonel Nicole Mann turned a career as an F-18 test pilot into that of an astronaut. We spoke to Mann recently before she headed up on her first mission on what it's like to make the move from the core to the tip of a rocket headed for orbit. Here's what she had to say.
Well, thank you for joining us today. I was hoping to begin by asking if you could share a little bit about why you decided to join the military and why and when you decided to transition as well to your career at NASA.
Absolutely. And so it was a pretty young age, actually, that I was interested in being in the military. I grew up in Northern California, not a ton of military influence there. However, my father did serve in Vietnam. And I think it really was just the concept of being a part of something that's bigger than you and serving your country. Then when I was young and in high school, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And that led me towards United States Naval Academy, where I was then commissioned in the Marine Corps. And then, of course, I flew F-18s in the Marine Corps, and I hadn't even thought about NASA yet. That was a dream that hadn't even crossed my mind, really, because I didn't really know what astronauts did and if that was something that was in the realm of possibilities. And so it wasn't until flying Hornets on my first deployment that somebody asked me, like, hey, did you ever think about being an astronaut? And I was like, I don't know. And so I Googled astronauts, and there were two active at the time, Doug Hurley and Colonel Bresnik. And so I looked at their bios and I thought, wow, my bio is very similar, the early part of it, to their bio. I wonder if that's something that I could do. And so that's the first time I kind of considered it.
Would you say that the process of becoming a Marine or the process of reaching where you're at now with NASA had been more challenging?
Wow, that would be tough to compare because, relatively when you're a young person and you're becoming a Marine, that is difficult. That is very challenging. I think because a lot of the skills that you're learning are new. You're being pushed, beyond your physical boundaries, beyond your mental boundaries. You're being kind of born as a Marine. And so that's very different, I think, than the kind of stressors that I have right now. Now becoming an astronaut, there's a lot of technical study. There's a lot of physical demand when, I'm just training for an EVA or an extra spacewalk, essentially. But I guess having that foundation as a Marine to know you can physically push through, you can mentally push through, that's really prepared me for all this training that I have at NASA, preparing for a flight into space.
I think you just touched on this, but were there other experiences from your time in the service that have lent well to the skills that you've needed to succeed as an astronaut?
Absolutely. I think, a big one with that is the ability to compartmentalize, right? You learn in the military, okay, I'm focused on this mission right now and I need to execute. And you may make a mistake and there may not be time to think about it and feel bad for yourself for doing anything because you need to move on. So you've got to compartmentalize that. You'll debrief it and learn from it later, but sometimes you don't have time to sit and dwell on that. Then there's times when you're home, when you really need to focus on your family and spend time with your family. And then there's other times where you're getting ready for a deployment, you're in workups, and you need to focus on being prepared in your job. So I think that's very similar to being an astronaut. Training for a space flight is similar to workups for a deployment. There's times when I really need to focus on my job, and then other times when I need to focus on myself or my family. I think it'll be similar operating in space. If you make a mistake, you've got a job to do. So you better, learn quickly and move on. And then you can feel bad about that later on and correct yourself.
I understand you're also part of what's called the Artemis program. And I'm wondering how you think that it might impact other people or what it might mean for you to be one of the first women in space, and then of course to be on the moon.
I think it's going to have an impact across the world, to be honest with you, when we put boots on the moon and whoever that is to have, to be the next person to step foot on the moon or to be a part of that Artemis program. It's an exciting time for NASA human exploration. And hopefully it will continue to, unite us together. There's a lot of international partnerships, a lot of commercial industries that go towards that. We have the launch of Artemis coming up the end of this month on August 28th. I hope everybody tunes in to watch that huge rocket leave planet Earth and head towards the moon. I mean, you hear people tell stories. I'm sure you've heard people still tell stories about watching Apollo launch, and, neither of us, I'm sure, were around during those launches. So it's going to be a pretty incredible. It's a huge step for all of humankind.
Before I let you go, anything else that's exciting you about this upcoming journey?
I'm excited to live and with my crew and operate. We're going to be on the space station for 6 months. There's going to be some really cool science that we're doing. There's some upgrades that hopefully we'll get to do a couple spacewalks. So upgrades to the space station, and so hopefully people follow along on our mission. I think that it's going to be a lot of new scientific breakthroughs that we'll be able to kind of participate in. And at the same time, we're going to be seeing Artemis launch. And so it's going to be cool to see this kind of stepping stone, low Earth orbit, and then off into the moon. It's a pretty cool time to be at NASA.
Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Semper Fi.
And that's all we have time for this week. Please visit us on militarytimes.com and defensenews.com for more coverage. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.